Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180 for the absolute best in Saturday Talk Radio, and now for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI at 1 o'clock. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay. Clay, what a show last week.
Yeah, Walter Williams is an incredible guy.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
Plus
Syndicated.
He gave us amnesty.
Yes, he did. You want to explain what amnesty we got?
No, you explain.
Well, it's actually on his website for anybody else of European descent that wants the amnesty, but we have amnesty for any things our forebears may have done to African Americans, and we have that petition signed by Walt Williams saying that we are absolved of any guilt.
I'm free.
You're free. I feel better after that show. We we also had Brian Johnson from the National Right to Life on, and both of those guests, I mean, we could have easily had an hour and a half with both of them and not covered half the material.
You know what's interesting? Our guest today could have talked with Brian because he really went into Obamacare and the negatives.
Yes, and he went into he did a very good explanation of Obamacare and the abortion issue and how it's going to affect abortion.
And the one thing that I came up with is the new program with Obamacare is abortion for seniors.
That's what you're calling the death panels now, right? Okay.
Senior abortion.
Well, before we introduce our guest today, let me just tell everybody who our guest is next week. Next week, we have a guest we've had on before, Margaret Hoover, Fox contributor and author of American Individualism. But this week, we have another friend of the show who talks about Clay's favorite subject, Obamacare. She's the author of The Truth About Obamacare, and she just released a new book, The Pipes Plan. President of the Pacific Research Institute, Sally Pipes. Sally, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Well, thank you for having me on.
It's always a pleasure, Sally.
Well, you know, Clay and I finally got to meet you in person back in November. We had lunch at the Health Underwriters meeting at Universal Studios.
Absolutely. It seems like just yesterday, and now we're into a new year, and an election year at that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, a real election year. Do you think we can beat Obama this year?
Well, I think it is such an important election. Unfortunately, from my perspective, I'm very worried about, who our group of people that are out there and as candidates is not as strong as I would have hoped. So I'm just hoping whether it's Mr. Romney, Mr. Gingrich, or Mr. Santorum, whichever one comes out on top, that one of them that will be able to beat Obama. It's just so very important because if the president has another 4 years, usually in a second term, presidents don't like to do too much. But I think in the case of Mr. Obama, he will want to do a lot more and accomplish a lot of the things that he felt he couldn't do in his first term because they were pushing the American people too far into a government-run society.
And, when you consider how much damage he did in the first term, the fact that he may have a second term unobstructed is dangerous. One thing, it's funny, we've had you on a couple times, Sally, over the last couple of years, but we've never talked about Romneycare. Is there a connection between Romneycare and Obamacare?
Well, very much so. I mean, then in 2006, then Governor Romney, in January of 2006, introduced Romneycare to the state legislature, and it eventually was signed into law by him in April of 2006. So it's almost 6 years old. And, there he was signing it with the late Senator Ted Kennedy behind him. And both Romneycare and Obamacare, the designer, one of the main designers of both programs, John Gruber, professor of economics at MIT, helped design both plans. And he said, that Romneycare is a microcosm of Obamacare. There's the individual mandate, the exchanges, controls on insurance companies, all of these things which, are also part of Obamacare and the parts that the American people don't like.
The scary thing about, to me, about Romney is the fact that he won't admit that, if he got up and said, hey, we made a mistake with this, we tried to be innovative, we gave it a try and it didn't work. But he's trying to make it sound like it worked on a state basis and it could work on a state-to-state basis. Does that sound like a disaster to you?
Well, absolutely. And, I have been, everything I write, having written a lot on Romneycare and what it's done to healthcare in Massachusetts, health insurance in Massachusetts is today the most expensive insurance in the country. They did not achieve universal coverage, and the cost curve has gone up, not down. So, and then, they'd hope to have emergency room use go down, and in fact, emergency room use in the state of Massachusetts is up by 9%, because a lot of those people who went on to Medicaid, the program for low-income people, and who went into the exchanges for the free and the subsidized care cannot find doctors because of the low reimbursement rate. So, I have been pushing and pushing, saying he should have a couple of years ago, and he should be saying now, I thought it was a good idea, it wasn't, and my first job as president will be to repeal Obamacare. And he has said that, about 2 or 3 months ago, he said his first day he would issue an executive order so that the states could get waivers to get out of Obamacare. Well, of course, the states have to apply for the waivers. It's not up to the president to issue the waivers. And even if they did apply for waivers and got them, it doesn't get rid of the whole of Obamacare. So he then said on his second day he would promote the legislation to Congress to repeal and replace Obamacare. But I was on Judge Napolitano's show last week, Freedom Watch, and the judge asked me the same thing, and I made the same point. I just can't understand why he won't back away from it. I think it's going to be really a negative in the final throes of the primaries. But also, I think it gives, if he doesn't do that, it gives President Obama so much ammunition. I think his people, David Axelrod and all of the people that are on his team, Daley in Chicago, are going to really push Romney on his Romneycare.
Well, and what it'll do is it'll eliminate Obamacare as an issue if Romney is the candidate. We're having a conversation with author and president of the Pacific Research Institute, Sally Pipes.
Sally, going back to Massachusetts, most of the carriers back there had tried to get rate increases because of the loss ratio being so high, and they were denied that. And then they tried to pull out of the state, and they're not able to do that. So what's the solution?
Well, exactly. I mean, the solution would be, to repeal Romneycare in the state of Massachusetts. But as you know, Deval Patrick is a Democrat. He'd been in the Clinton administration, very, very liberal. And he has been, going to Washington, getting more funds from the feds, which is really, the feds don't have money, we have money. So people in California are, paying taxes to subsidize Romneycare in Massachusetts. So I think, the insurers, there's a reduction in the number of insurers in Massachusetts. And, why would you stay as an insurer in Massachusetts when the loss ratios are so high? It makes it difficult to stay in business. You move out of that state, and I'm worried that is the long-run goal of President Obama, is to crowd out all private insurers in the United States, and we'll be left in a single-payer Medicare for all program. I think that's the president's long-term goal. He said it, many times before he became the president. But why should the state government tell insurers in Massachusetts that they have to stay in business? That is not the way the market works.
Well, in any communist society or Marxist society, we don't have a free market anyway, and I think that's the direction we're being led right now.
Well, and I think we'll see it in the State of the Union because I think the president, he wants to enrich the middle class by increasing the role of government. But by increasing the role of government, we're going to destroy the entrepreneurial class, which is the class that does create jobs for us and really make our economy, very strong. And countries are not strong forever. And if you keep moving down the path to more government, capital has no nationality. Money will move out of this country. Jobs are already moving, have moved to overseas, to China and the Far East. So it's very, very worrying about what he is trying to do to this country. And I think that's why it's so important that a real free market candidate take back the presidency this year.
Well, I think we're already seeing that in the pharmaceutical industry, where we're seeing less and less new drugs coming to market because they know they're not going to get the tax credits or tax deductions, and also they're going to be taxed so high under the new Obamacare legislation.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, last year in 2011, there was a levy put on pharmaceutical companies that they have to pay, and then the new taxes. The tax that next year, 2013, is the 2.3% tax comes into being on medical device companies. We've already seen in Michigan, Stryker, said they're reducing a lot of jobs. There's the venture cap money, private equity money for medical device, has really been drying up, because if you're someone with in the venture cap or private equity business and you want to put money into an industry, you want to make a return on your investment. And that's why, with the thought that with these taxes, it's really going to destroy the pharmaceutical, biologic, medical device industry in this country, and it'll move offshore. It'll move over to China, to Indonesia. It'll move to Europe. Europe hasn't been able to compete, and it'll destroy jobs in America, and it'll be harmful to us as Americans because we do have access to the best devices, the best pharmaceuticals, the best biologics. You destroy that market, and it's going to hurt us in the long run.
Let's pick up there when we get back. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.